Welcome to The Flirty Vegan, the podcast that motivates you to thrive through plant-based living. I'm your host, Jenny Shafitz, certified life, breathwork, and vegan lifestyle coach. After decades of dieting and deprivation, I found the secret to living a compassionate, nourished life. Whether you've been vegan for years or you're just flirting with the idea, prepare to be inspired by real people who courageously chose health and love. It's time to look better, feel better, and do better. Hey friends, it's me, Jenny Shafitz, your host and trusted vegan lifestyle coach and advisor. This is episode 117, and I am thrilled you are here, either for the first time or as a loyal listener, because this show is so special to me. You may be wondering why this show is called The Flirty Vegan. Let me explain. It started because of a friend of mine. She and I were talking, and she was expressing interest in improving her diet, approaching life differently, and she said it herself. She said, "I'm not ready to go vegan, but I'm flirting with it." And that sparked a conversation between the two of us that led to a complete overhaul in my platform and how I want to relate to my audience and potential clients. She described herself as a flirty vegan, someone who wasn't ready to fully commit, but was definitely attracted to the benefits and some of the concepts that I would bring up to her. So this show is for you if you are flirting with a healthier, more sustainable, more compassionate approach to diet and lifestyle. My mission with this show is to present many perspectives and advantages to choosing a compassionate, plant-based, sustainable lifestyle. And so week after week, you get to hear from mission-driven people whose vegan values show up in lots of different ways. So if you've been listening to this show, then you've heard from various activists, people involved with animal sanctuaries, health and medical experts, coaches, entrepreneurs, and so many others. So I do hope you will go back and listen to the episodes that you have missed, because there are gems in every conversation. And as a massive consumer of podcasts myself, I always find it interesting when I listen to a show that features celebrities, you know, well-known, perhaps household names, but also everyday people. And obviously, that show, that host knows the value inherent in every person, that every guest has a story to share that listeners will appreciate. The same thing goes for this show. Yes, I have featured some really well-known experts and influencers, but I also love talking to everyday, relatable people. And that's what you're getting today. But make no mistake, SARAH METZGER is a really special individual, even if you don't know her name. Our relationship began a couple years ago when I found her podcast, which helped support me in the early days of my vegan journey. And we connected and developed a friendship, and it's been lovely getting to know her, and I'm thrilled to share her with you. As someone who is conscious of health and wellness, SARAH is a longtime vegan and fully embraces a plant-based lifestyle while finding joy in helping other people explore a similar path. The many layers of her journey have allowed her to experience everything from development of interpersonal connections at farmers markets, owning and operating a restaurant and bakery, custom cake creations, to podcasting about what is on our plates beyond food, and really peeling back the layers in life so we can shift our portions to not only nourish our bodies, but our hearts, minds, and souls as well. What's on Your Plate podcast is a space to connect on all things that make our plates in life heavy and abundant, and seeks out transformative, inspiring, and healing conversations. Her take on things is that if you want to become a better version of yourself, you have to be willing to change what isn't working, find purpose in your pain, be willing to change your mind, and get out of your own way. And it's that aspect of her, this really confident and steadfast position about personal growth, that really attracted me to her. And it's also what she and I have in common. Just as she said, you have to be willing to change what isn't working. That's the backbone of this show. I'd like to think that everyone is flirting with veganism, whether they're aware of it or not, because I do believe that everyone, especially if you're listening to podcasts, has a desire to grow and be a better version of themselves. And it is my belief, of course, no surprise here, that through veganism, we do improve. We do become better versions of ourselves and shift our thinking about our place in the world and our impact on each other and the planet itself. And so I'm excited to share this conversation with you. And also, if you are struck by Sarah's words and an inner desire to evolve and live more consciously, then I would love to be the coach that guides you. At The Flirty Vegan, I love helping people tweak their shopping lists and their favorite recipes to optimize the health of family members, of course, but also the connection we have to food, the connection we have to the food system, understanding where our food came from, the people and pain and suffering involved in a lot of industries, especially animal production, and how we can every day, multiple times a day, take a compassionate position and send out ripples of love and empathy into the ocean that connects us all. So I know that got a little hippy dippy there, but I really would love for you to head to the show notes and click on the link for a free connection call. Let's have an easygoing, no pressure conversation. And I will also urge you to click on the link for the best vegan cookie recipe. You will not be disappointed. And what I love to say to people is they are made with love, not animals. And isn't that great that we can have a delicious chocolate chip cookie, which I know some of my doctor guests do not approve of, but let's just say we can have a delicious, indulgent dessert without harming anyone along the way. And now I am delighted to bring you my conversation with my friend, Sarah Metzger. Well, this is an absolute delight for me because we have a little bit of a history together, Sarah. So I'm super excited to welcome Sarah Metzger to the Flirty Vegan podcast. Hi again.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, it's really nice the way our journeys have intersected in such lovely ways. So I'm thrilled to be able to showcase you on this show since you did that for me on yours. It's fun to come full circle.
It is, it is. It's cool to just circle back, touch base again, and just reconnect and talk about where we are now.
Yeah, which will hopefully support the listeners who are flirting with a vegan lifestyle. So let's start off, as I do every episode. I'd like to ask you, what attracted you to veganism?
Yeah, I feel like my answer is always the same. 16 years into my personal vegan journey, it was just a natural progression. I did not know anybody that was even vegetarian at the time that I decided to stop eating animals. It was just something that felt right for me. I just slowly started omitting things that didn't feel good to me anymore. And a lot of it stemmed from caring deeply about how I fueled my body. As somebody that's always been active, an endurance runner, I really paid attention to what I was eating, how it fueled me, how it helped me recover. It was only after and down the road from that knowing that I discovered all the other many reasons to be vegan. But
Mhm.
honestly, I wasn't sick. I didn't have any ailment that made me, need to switch up anything specifically in my diet or lifestyle. It was just an inner knowing that told me this just isn't what we want anymore.
That's so interesting because when you talk about fueling your body and wanting to feel good as an athlete, I feel like the common understanding out there is obviously about protein and these like packaged recovery items, whether it's a drink or a bar or a gel. And and again, pack in the chicken breasts or the yogurts or the steaks. So I don't know. I guess I look at you as a unicorn. Like, how did you get to the point where you were connected to yourself enough to say, how I'm fueling doesn't feel good? I feel like most people don't even have that relationship with themselves. They just shove in what either Men's Health or Runner's World or their buddy tells them to have, and no one's really thinking, God, I'm feeling really sluggish, or my joints ache for the next 5 days.
Mhm.
How did that work for you?
I don't know that I had the verbiage for it at the time to identify specific things like, muscle recovery or hydration recovery or fatigue or anything like that. I just knew that I wasn't aligned with animal products in my body anymore. It just wasn't something that felt like I needed it. And it became so undesirable. It first started with just taking out dairy. It started then with meats, and ultimately eggs went, I think, were the last thing for me. And it just slowly, as I kept removing these things and then educating myself on, well, now what do I need to do to fuel myself better or sufficiently, rather, it was
Hmm.
just this like exchange. It just was an exchange of animal protein, and I guess we'll use the word nutrition for lack of a better one, for plant-based versions of it. And then when you start feeling the difference, when you, especially from a digestive standpoint, for me, I feel like is what I really noticed in terms of endurance running and just how my digestion was affected during those periods of time of running and marathoning and things like that. There was a vast difference of how that felt, plant-based foods versus animal foods. And for me, it just, there was less bloating, there was less, it's probably TMI, but like bathroom emergencies on the
Absolutely.
run, I mean, there was
Yep.
less things like that that I noticed for sure, like early on. And when I decided to take animals and animal products out of my diet, it wasn't with that specific objective in mind. I didn't know that's what was
Right.
going to happen, but that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I noticed after I omitted those products from my plate is digestion was easier. It didn't feel like something I had to worry about as much. It just, well, it was natural in a way that it wasn't before.
And isn't it funny that we just accept these health situations as part of life, part of aging, part of being an American, part of, I don't know, being a woman, that it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to have painful periods or irregular periods. I'm going to have crappy sleep as I get older. I'm going to have bathroom issues because everybody does, Sarah. So it's just normal. And then all of a sudden, you wake up one day and a light bulb goes off, and you're like, wow, I haven't either been constipated for a week, or I haven't rushed to the bathroom in an emergency. Or for me, it was a lot of joint pain. I was not waking up in the morning dreading that first foot onto the floor.
Mhm.
And it's just wild.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that you notice shift when you really take the time to try out this way
Mhm.
of living. And there's all these little things that are cumulative. For some people, it is like a definite, I lost a bunch of weight, or my hair stopped falling out, or my acne cleared up.
Yep.
Sometimes it's really big, noticeable things. But if you're really paying attention as time goes on, there's all kinds of benefits. And as you said, the things that you thought were normal, they're not.
Right.
And if as soon as you start just understanding what was causing those things and now you've taken them out, I mean, it just why would you go back?
Right. Right. Okay, so that springboards me to the next question. Why would you go back? So, while I want to be welcoming to the listeners, and I certainly don't want to turn anyone away from considering this lifestyle, there is this elephant in the room, so to speak, of the people who do go back to eating animals. They say that they tried being vegan and it didn't work for them. I'm sure you've encountered some of those people. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know Miley Cyrus personally, but she's one of them. What do you think about that? Or can we just like ease our way into that?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is you have to have more than one why. Maybe initially you start with one, but as soon
Mhm.
as you allow yourself space and time to immerse yourself in the lifestyle, you start to understand the many reasons why you would be plant-based. And we talked a little bit about that off camera of the very different terminology and how it can get confused, how it's interchangeable, and vegan doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as plant-based or plant-forward, right?
Right.
Just for our listeners' sake, and I'm sure you've said this multiple times on your platform, but
There's always new listeners.
vegan is removal of all animal products whenever possible from your diet and your lifestyle, not just one or the other, right?
Hmm.
People who are plant forward or let's say plant based first, they may only have plants on their plate, but maybe they still wear fur. Maybe they
Hmm.
still purchase leather, that kind of thing. Plant forward is somebody who really just is trying to be more conscious of eating plants, but it's not really an ethical stance, right? I feel like those of us that have maintained this way of living for a long time, it's because you not only understand the health benefits of it, but you also understand the ethical stance of it. And it becomes important to you. One
Hmm.
isn't necessarily more important than the other, but if you don't have at least two whys and you don't care about those two whys, then it's easy to say, well, it didn't really matter to me anyways, and it's not that big of a deal, and I don't really believe animals suffer, and I don't really think that, this causes heart disease. If you don't really believe it, if you're not really educating yourself and understanding all the many consequences of eating animals, it's easy to just go back.
Yeah. So, how do you manage friction or opposition in your life? Either people saying, Sarah, that's BS, like vegan is so unhealthy, animals aren't actually tortured, or you're denying yourself proper nutrition. What do you, how do you respond to that? Do you deal with it and how do you respond?
I certainly respond, and it's evolved over the years the way I respond. Early on in my journey, there was a lot of like defense that came up, right? There was a lot of like confrontational discussions where I felt like I had to defend myself or validate or prove something. As time went on, and because I enjoy spending time in my kitchen, I just made believers out of people based on feeding them. So
Yeah.
to me, that's my favorite activism is just feeding people delicious plant-based food.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when they have a good experience and they understand they don't have to give up the foods that they love, they can still enjoy things that are nostalgic and things that are comforting to them. It's not like you're just eating grass in a bowl with a side of bark every day, you know? Like that's the misconception is that you're going to somehow not feel satisfied in your
Yeah.
diet. So for me, that's my starting point is helping people understand that food is still delicious, it's still nourishing, and I've done that by way of owning a business, actually feeding people. I've done that by way of offering courses and food education. At this point in life, I am open to conversations, but
Mhm.
I am not fragile anymore to other people's opinions about whether or not they think it is right. People who are confrontational about it or want to argue the point. To me, that's just them lacking some type of understanding and approaching the conversation aggressively because there's some type of underlying fear. They're
Mhm.
afraid of something that they don't know or afraid that they're going to be lacking something or missing something. And they just want to challenge something because nobody likes to be told what they've always done might not be the right way or the best way.
Yeah. Which is so funny because not that I want to be told on a regular basis that I'm wrong, but I do love learning and I do love being enlightened that, oh, that, I don't know, hair product you've been using, cruelty-free, vegan, regardless, maybe not the best thing for your hair. Have you tried this? It's like, oh, tell me more. Again, I don't want to constantly be told I'm wrong, but I do want to be educated about things, maybe I've been doing laundry wrong my whole life.
Hmm.
Tell me how to do it better. Simple
Right.
things.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. It's the realization that all of life is learning And if you're not evolving and if you're stagnant, if you're not growing in some way, then what is the point, honestly, right? We're here to do that. So people that are resistant to that are doing so because they're just afraid. They're afraid, they're comfortable, complacent. That can be an easy place to stay, even though it isn't a healthy one.
Right. So, how do you stop yourself from wanting to scream from the rooftops or run through, I don't know, a grocery store? If you go to a grocery store, I imagine you don't, you make everything yourself. You do have to go to a store once in a while. How do you stop yourself from running around and telling everybody everything you know? Because I tried the other day and I shouldn't have. It was completely unsolicited, so I had no reason to chime into this guy's ear. I saw him picking up a loaf of bread, and I made a suggestion for another brand. He didn't ask. So rude of me. I get that. But I said, I see you picking that one up. Have you thought about this one? And he was like, this is the one I buy. And I said, right, I know, but this one is way more nutritious. And he's like, have a nice day, and kept going.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I know it doesn't work, but the angst is still there, the desire to
Yeah.
share.
Well, I understand what you mean by that, feeling like you would like to make a suggestion that would help somebody. But when it is unsolicited, I have just found that just exactly what happened to you, it isn't welcome.
Yeah.
It is not welcome. So it's the same that goes with telling somebody who smokes that they need to stop smoking. Somebody who is making a parenting decision that is opposite of what you would do is not going to hear you. Somebody
Mm,
who is, buying bread off the shelf or buying meat is not going to hear you when you say, "Have you tried this vegan version?" Because I think the defenses go up immediately. And I have just found that the more open I can be, the more thoughtful I can be to people on their journey, just helps them ask me questions that open up the door to more conversation about plant-based eating and veganism than if I just say, "Hey, did you know that I'm vegan and I can absolutely show you how to like cook vegan and make better choices and make everything from scratch?" Like that just feels overwhelming to people. So I just find that subtle mentions of something, or maybe somebody notices that I'm eating something different than what they are in a group setting or something, or maybe I bring something to share. And by the way, there's no egg and dairy in it, kind of thing, if it's a baked good. And that opens the door to, oh, why? Are you allergic? No, I just
mhm.
am vegan. I don't eat animal products. And then that is just this whole gateway. And if it's delicious on top of that, then you're just blowing people's mind and then they want the recipe. And then, it's just this ripple effect that is positive.
Yeah. So we're going to come back to this at the end, but I have to just address it right now. What are a couple of the things that you make that are like hands down, everyone loves, crowd pleasers?
Well, for sure, cakes. I was a cake creator for a long time. That was one of the niches of my storefronts, custom, beautiful,
Hmm.
themed cakes
Wow.
that I continue to have requests for today, even years after I've closed my storefront. So that's something that people are always blown away by that, wow, this doesn't taste like a vegan cake, which I'm not really sure what that means, but people who have not been plant-based, of course, even continued to order from me. People are always amazed by just, well, any baked good for sure, cakes
Yeah.
mostly, but things like the barbecue that I used to make in my storefront that is seitan, it's wheat based. It
Yeah.
was one of the most popular dishes on the menu and continues again to be something that people ask for. As well as just, we did a lot of like comfort type of foods like tacos and barbecue and grilled mac and cheese sandwiches. I mean, just indulgent things, but also nutritious. They're
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
from plant-based ingredients and those types of things. People continue to say, "Oh, I still remember that, chicken and waffles that I ate in your storefront, and that helped me like know that I didn't have to eat animals in order to feel
Wow.
satisfied." So it's things
Mm.
like that that really just, you've influenced
Yeah.
somebody to think differently with just sharing something that's delicious. It can really be that simple.
That's awesome. Do you use any of the plant-based butters, or how do you make baked goods taste so good and so similar to
Mhm.
the animal laden ones? Or do you
Yeah.
use those things, or have you found plant substitutions that do get that richness?
It depends on the recipe, honestly. There are some recipes that I do use a plant-based butter,
Mhm.
and then others, unbeknownst to anybody, has pureed beans in it.
Right, right.
Or it's avocado, you know? So it just depends on the recipe. But at the end of the day, when you even if you were to make a traditional, we'll say cake, for lack of a better words, you're even if you added eggs and dairy milk, it doesn't come out tasting like it has either of those things in it, right?
Fair.
So it's just the same with plant-based cakes. You're looking to add a richness
Oh,
from a fat
yeah.
content. You're looking to add a binding agent. There's lots of plant-based alternatives for that.
That's so true. Exactly. Right. I mean, I made from whose cookbook? I think it was Dr. Will Bolsowitz Fiber Fueled. I made brownies. And I am no stranger to the black bean brownie. I've done Weight Watchers enough times that's been circulated many times in my life. They were diet food. That did not taste good. But
No.
I followed his recipe and made the black bean brownies. And they're also, Mexican chocolate. You got cayenne and cinnamon. It was just, they're insanely good. And I think to myself, wow, like you don't taste black beans, you don't taste any of the individual ingredients per se. It just comes
Mhm.
together so beautifully. And it's so true when you make anything. It's not like you're tasting the butter in the cookies or the eggs in the cookies.
Mhm.
It's just coming together.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, for you and your listeners, I will share with you the one semi store-bought thing that I make. And it comes from the brownies, right? It is a vegan store-bought brownie mix, which there are many. You know,
Many, many.
if you
Yep.
just yep. And sometimes the gluten-free one is honestly the gluten-free versions are honestly the better ones that come out better.
Wow.
The gluten-free accidentally vegan
Yep. Yep. Like
store-bought brownie
Bisquick. Yeah, I
mix.
love I love these things that are accidentally vegan.
Yeah,
Yep.
a can of pureed black beans with their liquid,
Uh-huh.
2 tablespoons of a fat of choice. It could be olive oil, it could be avocado oil,
Sure.
half a cup of chocolate chips of whatever kind you prefer. Many are
Yep.
plant-based.
Many.
That's
Yep.
it.
There's
And
wow.
that was the base of my cookie dough brownie, which was a 4-layer brownie. And that was like my most popular, just from the case type of dessert. That was the base. Nobody, no,
Four
they do
four
not taste like,
layers.
yeah, it ended up being 4 layers, but the base is that black bean brownie
Okay.
recipe. That's the only like store mix that I make baked goods from. Everything else I do make from scratch. But that was
Sure.
just something that always worked out perfectly every single time. And to this
Mm,
day, it continues to be the go-to brownie recipe. You just got to add a few things and jazz them up a bit.
love it. What were the other layers?
So the brownie was the bottom, and then it was cookie dough, and then it was crumbled chocolate chip cookies, and then it was layers of ganache.
Mm, so good. I love it. And like even just those words, like none of that sounds like it should be plant-based.
It all
But
is though.
right.
Yeah, and except for the brownies that have just the store-bought mix, it's all made from scratch.
So good. I love that. I love it. You're so inspiring, your videos, your Instagram. I mean, some of it's a little intimidating to see, you're like slicing off of what looks like something from the deli case, like this
Yeah.
roast. And I'm like, she just made like a faux turkey out of plants. That might be over my head. But then I'll see the cookies and be like, maybe I could do that.
Well, that's the thing too. That's something that people really get hung up on is they become intimidated, right? By all the things that everybody else is doing. That's one of the downfalls of social media is it lets us see what everybody else is doing and how
With
perfect everybody
everything.
else. Yeah,
Right.
how perfect it is for everybody else and there's no mess. And I can tell you, like I am not the neatest cook in the kitchen. Like when I make something and I show a video like that, right outside of the view of my camera is my pile of dishes, is the
Yep.
containers from the ingredients I use. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
like social media has really been helpful in a lot of ways, but it also makes people feel like things are out of reach. And I promise you, with a little know-how, some easily followed instructions, anybody can make those vegan deli style meats
Yeah.
that you can slice at home yourself. It's yeah, it's really pretty straightforward, but we think that it's out of reach because it's unfamiliar, right? And it feels scary to try something. And what if it doesn't work? I wasted all this time and ingredients and but yeah, if you can just be open to a little time, a little experimentation in your kitchen, just starting small, even if it is a cookie recipe. That's how you gain confidence. You don't gain confidence by just being ready to start. You gain confidence by doing it and then learning from that and moving on to something a little more difficult.
And it is so true with the entire vegan journey. Like, I know yours was gradual, and I did, quote, go vegan overnight. Not the way it looks today, but I did cut out all animal consumption overnight. But I never would have imagined then how I cook today, how I prep food, how I look at labels, how I care about beauty products and home products. And it's like, yes, I did one thing overnight, but then so much has evolved since then. So I think in general, people need to slow the roll, remove the cinder block of pressure from the shoulders, and just take another step forward.
Right, right. Like don't overanalyze it so much that then you have this like analysis paralysis and then you can't do anything, right? I mean,
Yep.
if I could think back on the last time I ate meat and then think about how that rippled into owning a vegan business and giving food courses to other people who then were empowered to make different choices themselves and then to be in the online space where you're influence even more people and it's hard to, you can't see that far ahead. You only if you just lean into what feels right in the moment, though, and be open to what that might bring, maybe it brings nothing significant, right? And you just remain on your journey, and it's not something that you share with the world. Maybe it's more quiet. It doesn't mean it's less important, but just be open to it taking you to the next right thing.
Yeah.
You know those people, they serve you something really delicious and then you ask them for the recipe and they get all secretive and dismissive because you know they don't want to share it? Well, I'm not one of those people. I have the most amazing chocolate chip cookie recipe that I veganized and I want to share it with you. This recipe is in a cookbook. It won Best of New Hampshire chocolate chip cookies, and whenever I make them for non vegans, they obsess and can't get enough. It is that good, but I'm not stingy. I'm happy to give it to you so you can make them and spread the love. Just head to the show description, click on the link for a cookie recipe, and it's all yours. You can thank me later.
So, trying to segue nicely from that of, thinking of the next right thing. What have you noticed from the extent of your journey, starting with wanting to optimize health and endurance and that sort of thing, and then learning about the animals and the environmental impact? What kinds of things have you noticed shifting in your life, belief wise, and I guess behavior wise from all of that?
I feel like something that comes to mind right away for me is the way that we could be addressing hunger in our world much differently if so much of the grain and farming wasn't done for the purpose of feeding livestock.
Yeah.
And even that word livestock, right? It separates the being
Yeah.
that is an animal. But not to get down that rabbit trail too much, but hunger for sure. Like there should not be food scarcity in our world with the amount of food that we produce, but
Hmm.
we produce so much of it to feed animals that then end up on people's plates. If we just bypass that, if we just focused our farming efforts more on
Yeah.
creating food to feed people, this would be a much different conversation in terms of addressing worldwide hunger.
I don't know about you, but for me, I will fully admit before I went vegan, I was selfish in my, self family bubble. I grew up in the time of African famine, and we've got to send all this money and resources over to Africa. There's starving children in Africa. Everyone I knew grew up with that message in the household. Finish your dinner because there's starving children in Africa. Well, there's starving children everywhere, I've come to learn. And I say that because I was oblivious to that. I didn't know there was food scarcity in my vicinity, but it's like, wow, there's starvation everywhere, the food insecurity everywhere. And there is kind of an obvious solution, but we're
Hmm.
fighting an uphill battle there.
For sure. It's a consciousness, right?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, when you start making really intentional decisions, whether it's for your health or for the benefit of animals or environment or whatever it is, when you start understanding that your choices affect more than just you, you can't like unsee things. You can't unknow what you know. So,
Mhm.
you can't unsee things. Once you have an understanding, especially when it comes to everybody is affected by different things. Some people see a documentary like Game Changers or What the Health, and they see videos of clogged arteries and what animal fat does to the inside of your body. And that's like something they can't unsee, right? And they're all of a sudden are making better choices because of that. Some people see terrible, horrific animal abuse happening in factory farms. It's like Paul McCartney has said, if
Yep,
every
yep.
slaughterhouse had glass walls,
No one.
everybody would be vegetarian,
Right. No
right?
one would
Because
eat meat after seeing that.
even if slaughter is done in a quote unquote compassionate manner, which we know is an oxymoron anyways,
Of
but
course.
okay, for the sake of argument, even if it is done compassionately, you are still, if you are witnessing something losing its life for the purpose of it ending up on your plates, and then you start having a different awareness of energetically what that means for that fear to be transferred from that animal onto your plate and how you're manifesting that, how you are internalizing that. And that gets more into the woo-woo side of things,
It
right?
sure
But it's
does.
all valid. And once you open yourself to the possibility of that being real, and it is,
Yeah.
but once you open yourself up to that, it's something that you can't unknow.
Yes. I had a great conversation with this amazing doctor. His name is Frank Sabatino, and he wrote a book called Weightless about weight and spirituality and veganism. And he's such a strong, inspiring voice for this movement. And we spent a good amount of our conversation talking about vibration and the energy in food
Mhm.
and how, yes, there is science to support that eating plants is mood boosting and the nutrients and the gut brain connection and all of that. But there's also the stuff that hasn't been studied, or I don't know if it ever could be studied, like you're saying, that when you're eating fear, when you're
Mhm.
eating sadness, the broken bond between mother and child, when you're eating that, that's in you and will be manifested in some way.
Mhm.
So maybe you have depression, maybe you're angry all the time, maybe you have general malaise, but it does emerge somehow.
For sure. And that requires people to be at a place in their journeys that allow them to have the understanding and belief that animals are sentient beings. And not everybody believes that,
Yep.
right? There's a lot of folks that feel like animals don't have emotion. I mean, all you need to do is look at your domesticated animals and know that that's not true, right?
Right.
So why
Right.
we separate, what a dog might be feeling versus what a cow might be feeling, it's It's something that has just been an ingraining in our culture and our society for hundreds of years, right? Forever. And just because it's the way it's always been done doesn't mean it's the right way. So that's
Yeah.
another thing that people just feeling like change is hard and it's hard to be
Yeah.
told what you've always been doing isn't right. But just because it's always been done this way doesn't mean it's the best way.
Right. I mean, look at corporal punishment, parents beating their children into good behavior, submission, slavery. Those were things that were done for a really long time until they weren't, until finally the connection was made of, oh, we could do something differently. Like these people have feeling. My children actually, my child hurts when I beat them, or that having people work in my garden while I beat them or deny them food or whatever, like that's not a good idea anymore. Yeah, it's not a good idea anymore.
Right. And but even people during those times, there were freedom fighters, there
Yeah,
were people helping oppressed people escape
yeah,
situations like that.
right.
So it's not like there was just this universal thought that it was okay. There were people who knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
And then there were people who were just very firm on, well, this is just my lifestyle and I require this for that to be sustainable for me, even if it is cruel to other people or other beings. And I mean, there are things that can be unlearned, but it also has to be a choice.
For sure. I opened up my Instagram today and it was so funny. I saw this video. Now my whole feed is vegan and fluffy cows and all that stuff. And there was I forget his name, but there's one of the nightly news guys. I don't really watch mainstream news, but I think he's one of the nightly news guys. And he was doing a story. So here's this clip from news, from mainstream nightly news, a guy doing a story on this earth-shattering news that cows can use tools. So there's some video that I think went viral of a cow, somewhere, I don't know, Norway or somewhere. A guy has a cow, and the cow is using a rake kind of thing to scratch itself. So like the cow knows it uses the kind of handle side for one type of scratching and the brush side for another part of scratching. And supposedly a study was done with this cow like 75 times. And the cow knows how to use this tool. And so it was this ridiculous acknowledgement that cows are smart. The cow knows how to use a tool. Like, wow, the cow is smart. And I just thought to myself, great, I'm glad we've acknowledged that cows are smart. Now can we acknowledge that they have feelings? Can we take it one step further?
hmm Yeah, it's a hard thing for people to grasp, I think, that animals are not here for the sole purpose of our use and abuse, right?
Yeah,
You'll hear people talk about things like the food chain
yeah,
and
I
how
love
we're
that.
we're on top of it as humans,
Yeah,
and that allows us to just take.
right.
And that's something that is dangerous thinking. I feel like that kind of thinking bubbles over into other beliefs in life, other ways of thinking about many different types of things, right? That you are on top of some type of pyramid or mountain
Yeah,
that makes everything less than you or lower than you, yours to just use as you see fit. Such a big conversation, that topic there, but
yeah.
just the idea that just because there's other beings here that are different from us doesn't mean that we can just do whatever we want with them, that we
Mhm.
can just take from them. Yeah, that's a whole another
Yeah, it
probably
is a whole
podcast.
thing. But what we can do is kind of simplify it down to something you alluded to before, which is kind of going against the grain, going against status quo thinking. I interviewed someone, Dr. Ruby Lathan, and she's a holistic nutritionist who healed herself of thyroid cancer by doing a number of lifestyle modifications, including going plant-based. And she had said something that was so interesting to me at the time, which is basically what you've said to me offline. I think this idea of opting out of traditional thinking, that
Mm.
she said it feels kind of cool to be a rebel in a sense, because I'm rebelling against normal thinking, that program that everyone's walking around with. So, how do you feel about being a rebel?
In many ways, I feel like it's necessary. And I try not to be like too much of like a conspiracy theorist on a lot of things,
Of course,
but
everyone thinks what we're thinking is
I
conspiracy,
know.
so it's hard. Yeah.
I know. But what I really lean into more and more is the things that heal us simply, the food that nourishes us simply. They're not profitable, right? So the world is super capitalistic. Rebelling against things, if that's the word we're going to use, of what big business, big government, those types of institutions say we should be doing. We should be eating meats that causes us to have high cholesterol, that then causes us to have a medication that doesn't fix it, but just kind of maintains it. And you probably have to take it for the rest of your life. And then it's going to probably develop into something else because nobody's talking to you about changing what you're eating. So you don't have the problem in the first place. And by the way, the things that you dealt with growing up or in your adult life that have caused you to internalize traumas that you need to release are only fueling deeper things that cause inflammation in addition to the food that is contributing to that. And let's talk about how we can maybe holistically and more naturally reduce those symptoms instead of having to like go and get medicated for that and take that for the rest of our life that then causes us to get sick from something else. Like it's just this ripple effect all the time that
Yeah.
yeah, that rebelling against the systems that have told you what you should be doing. I guess the whole thing that I would ask people to question is what's in it for other people? And is it really the right choice for me? What is somebody else gaining by
Mhm.
me just continuing to do status quo?
Mm. So, besides being plant-based, what other things in your life have you shifted? Not for the purpose of being a rebel
Right.
or giving the status quo the middle finger, but for improvement, for more joy, more thriving.
I mean, I feel like the biggest thing that comes to mind immediately is the way I've chosen to educate my son. We are outside of the traditional school system completely now and attend a micro nature-based school that doesn't focus on things like standardized tests and percentages and labels. It does not focus on dictating a curriculum that a child may or may not feel any kind of connection with whatsoever. It does not focus on blindly memorizing facts that they don't care about. It's very much child-led learning that allows them to lean into their own interests while combining what we would call subjects in a standardized classroom in a way that just amplifies that all of life is learning and it is best learned when you're in nature, when you are allowed to learn from being outside and not in front of a screen.
Yeah.
It is vastly contradictory or not
Yeah.
contradictory. It is vastly different, I guess I'll
Yeah.
just say, from
Yeah.
what I mean, we were in public school for over 3 years, and I just knew, like, with every year, I'm like, this isn't it.
Yeah.
And, I know this isn't a conversation about schooling and all those things. We won't get too far into it, but an opportunity became available that allowed me to do something incredibly different. And we did it, and it was scary, and it's still
Yeah.
scary. But the same thing is true about making a plant-based decision, right?
And
Or
raising a plant-based child.
all of these things can feel like you're being judged, or what is everybody else going to say? Or, oh, I'm going to get so much pushback for this, or
Yes.
am I doing the right thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also fear driven,
Yeah.
these things that um, limit how we move forward. And this was no different. But that's to answer your question, that's probably one of the bigger areas in life where I have got far outside the box. And it's as it pertains to my son and the way that he's learning.
That's amazing. Do you think there's any connection between your years of being vegan and a confidence, let's say, to make aligned choices?
Well, it's for sure been helpful, I will say, because as I mentioned earlier, I did not even know a single vegetarian when I started taking animal products out of my diet. I didn't even know what the term vegan really was until I started unpacking that more. And as I removed the animal products, and I had to put some thought into, well, what am I going to eat now? And that put books in front of me that helped me understand what I was actually doing. So I would say the confidence that came from that when there was nobody supporting me, not a single
Hmm.
person. Everybody thought I was being ridiculous. Everybody thought I was inconveniencing them because I wouldn't eat the meat at the holiday gathering. You know, they're all the things, right? I'm sure you experience it too. But I didn't care. You know, in those early days, there was more confrontation, right? There was more friction. That's since dissipated. I approach things differently now. But that I think has always been something inside of me is that I'm not super compliant. I'm not
The
super
rebel.
conforming. I'm not super, I'm not easily coerced type of thing. And if that does happen, I usually end up backtracking and like, what the hell just happened? What did I just do? Kind of thing. Why did I make that choice? And, course correcting.
Yeah. I know I keep referencing these former podcast guests, but you know from having your own that people are amazing and you just want
Hmm.
to constantly give them credit.
Yeah, everybody contributes amazingly.
So I had this guest, Thomas Wade Jackson, who is a documentary filmmaker, and he made a movie called A Prayer for Compassion, which is just hands down one of the best things I've ever watched. And he told the story of how, as he was becoming vegan, like you said, he didn't know anyone, he didn't know any of these terms. He just had removed animal. It just happened in this
Hmm.
strange organic way. And so he was living in New York City and went into a deli to order a sandwich. And I don't know, said, let's just say the veggie wrap. And the man behind the counter said, "Okay, do you want that vegetarian or vegan?" And he was like, "What's vegan?" And the guy said, "Well, it's got no animal at all in it, no cheese, no whatever." And he's like, "Yes, I want that." And that was the day that he's like, "Oh, I'm vegan." Like there's a word for what I'm feeling, a word for my purpose, my mission. And it was just so validating.
Yeah. Yes, labels can be helpful. They can be limiting, but they can also be helpful.
Yeah.
But the fact that that helped him just understand what he was becoming,
That's what it
right?
was. That it's like, wait, if there's a word for this, then there's other people doing this. It's a
Yes.
thing. That was, I think, the moment that he had. Whereas,
I-
once I went vegan, it was already a thing. I had heard of it. I
Mhm.
wasn't just like experimenting with my own philosophy. It was like, oh, this is a
Right.
thing.
Well, and I think to your point, if it was a word, if it was a term, then that meant he wasn't the only one and there were others. And I think that really is important for a lot of people. You know, we're meant to be in community. We're meant to have our tribe, so to speak, right? So you might be able to start something on your own. But even for myself, who, I'm pretty introverted, I don't like have a big circle of people. I don't really attend or show up to a lot of things. People find that kind of surprising because I do things like podcasts and engage in different things. But anyways, even people who are more introverted, you still need your people, even if it is by reading a book, even if it is, an influencing chef. You know, you do need to know that you're not alone in some ways in life. And that's super important. And for a lot of people, it's everything, like you have to have your community in order to feel like you're supported, like physically, like a group of people, right? Or maybe you do in this kind of world, maybe you have a Zoom call from people all over the world that are new on their plant-based journey, and that's helpful in order to choose this instead of that today, because it is a struggle for a lot of people. A lot of people, it isn't a switch. You mentioned that you did it overnight. I think that's not true for most people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the people that I talk to, I know it's hard. And it's not to say it's not hard for me. I made that switch overnight, but I encounter opposition and conflict on a daily basis.
Every day.
Every day. I mean, I went, if not just from people I know, from strangers. I went to a coffee shop and I really thought that the word vegan was mainstream enough that I could say I was asking about a product. I think it was like a sugar syrup type of thing to put in the coffee, which I don't do at home, but when I'm out, let's go crazy. And I said, "Do you make it in-house?" No, we have packaged the bottles. Okay, do you know if they're vegan? I don't know if the butterscotch flavor has actual butter in it. I just need confirmation. And I said, "Do you know if it's vegan?" And she twisted up her face and gave me such a rotten sourpuss response. Vegan? What? Take the bottle, look at it yourself. And fine, I could look at it myself and now know. But it was just like, why is this? Why is this? And then, the upcharge on the non-dairy milk that I left there with such an ugly feeling. And I said, all right, well, the most comforting thing I can do for myself is not return.
Mhm.
I'm not going to blast them on Yelp or anything, but it was just another example of pushback, daily pushback.
To me, that goes back to just humaning. And people are not going to remember a lot, but they will remember the way you make them feel. And if you are made to feel like the leper in the room, expect that person to, like you said, not come back. And I think there's a lot to be said about being hospitable.
Mhm.
Um, and not everybody has that awareness. Not everybody is able to lean into that. But, if somebody has a nut allergy, right, there's great lengths that are taken to make sure that that person has something available, usually like in a school setting, a social setting, right?
Even
Same
on
thing with,
airplanes.
yeah, same thing with like gluten free, like, because those are more like the hot topics at times, or the ones that seem more acceptable and less confrontational. Because if you're gluten free, if you have a nut allergy, you're not
It,
talking about an ethical,
right. It's not your fault. It's not your choice. It's right.
right?
We
So,
asked for this situation.
yeah.
We chose to be difficult.
But all that to say, those things are usually met with more hospitality, right?
Yes, yes,
There's full aisles at grocery stores that are gluten-free aisles, types
yes.
of things, right? But you don't really see that as a vegan thing most of the time. But for sure, what I have found is any place that is not willing to at least be hospitable, respectful, we're talking about like eating out or coffee shops, you know, you're not everybody's for you. Not every place is going to be for you. And while I feel like they can definitely improve and evolve, if they're not there yet, again, kind of like having an understanding that not everybody's on the same journey, just go to the place that gets it.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. And there are a couple, frankly, Starbucks is on board now. They don't charge extra for non-dairy milk anymore, and that's nice. And I'm grateful for that.
It does feel like a small win for sure, even though they are a big company and, it's different than visiting your local coffee house. But what I will say too, what I have found in my own community is even just a little conversation with a manager, an owner, like asking them, hey, what would it take to get some soy milk? What would it take to get some oat milk? Whatever it is that
Yeah.
you are looking for. How hard would it be to, from just an inquiring, a curious standpoint, how hard would it be for you guys to stock that so it can make it easier for me to visit you more regularly? And I have a group
Right.
of friends, by the way, that they also, don't drink dairy, and we'd love to like have our weekly gathering here, but we would need some kind of plant-based alternative. Like even just having the conversation, because you don't know what you don't know. Maybe they don't think it's a big demand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's totally true. Such a good point. Thank you. Well, we could do this all day long, and this has been so delightful. I would love for you to tell the audience more about you, where to find you and follow you.
So I don't know if we mentioned it earlier in the conversation or not. Professionally, I do other things outside of veganism at this point, but I'm always open to the conversations. People that continue to have questions that have been in my life still reach out to me and ask just anything from how do I swap this for that to advice about going full vegan. So I'm always open to those questions and inquiries. I'm certainly on Instagram. It is underscore Sarah Metzger. Outside of my personal Facebook page and Instagram, I am a meta ad strategist, and sarahmetzgermarketing.com is where you can find me there.
I imagine you'll get some hits on the four-layer brownie, more details on that.
Yeah,
One of which will
yeah,
be from me.
yeah. Yeah, I'll try to think of how I can make that available. I'm far removed from creating food to feed other people for the purpose of
Yeah,
business, like I said. So I'm more inclined to offer those recipes now. So.
nice. Well, that's amazing. And then my last question to my guests is always, can you share, beyond just those recipe type of things, can you share a few of your favorite foods that you like to partake of? Not necessarily your blockbuster recipes, but what do you like to eat?
Tofu is a regular staple in my world. I make it about 100 different ways.
I just did
So,
this morning. Yep.
yeah, I mean, it's such a versatile food and everything from your basic breakfast scramble to making it into dips and sauces, incorporating it into desserts. I mean, it's just so versatile. So, for sure, that's something that's always a staple in my house. Other things are just having an abundance of fresh produce. I do a lot of juicing, so having that available on a regular basis is something that I do as well. And then outside of that, I mean, just a really decent, like plain dark chocolate bar is something that you can find in my pantry on a regular basis, just for the occasional, hey, I just really need like something sweet or a piece of chocolate kind of thing. And
Do you have a favorite brand?
you know what? This is so ridiculous because I don't even shop there. I don't even know if I want to say it. You can decide if you want to share it or not. Because it's so ridiculous. Walmart's
Oh, wow.
has the cheapest and best tasting vegan chocolate that really I've ever had.
I will 100% include this.
And
Wait,
it's like accidentally vegan at that too. It doesn't like say vegan chocolate
well,
bar.
that's how I feel about the Trader Joe's chocolate chips that I buy when I buy
Yeah.
them like 10 bags at a time. They're
Yes.
just accidentally dark
Yes.
chocolate, dairy free, and terrific.
Yeah, you can find so many accidentally vegan things if you just take some time to look at the labels. Um, we found those as a result of my kid wanting campfire s'mores. And I'm like, I'm not paying like 10 to 12 bucks for a bar of vegan
Yep,
chocolate and you're going to eat like these every night. You know what I'm saying? It just got out of hand.
totally.
So I came across those. They're like around $2 a bar in my area and they're
Oh my God.
delicious.
I will totally be
There's
looking that up because we
there's the
got
tip of the
ourselves,
day.
yeah, we got ourselves stuck into Walmart Plus for another year. So I
It's like
will.
the only thing I go to Walmart for. Sorry, Walmart supporters. I'm not usually a fan except for that one thing.
I know. Yeah, it does serve a purpose. But that is so good to know. In fact, I don't think they sell it anymore because I think I looked. But at the beginning of my vegan journey, they actually did have vegan white chocolate chips, store
Hmm.
brand. I don't think they have them anymore, so I had to suck it up and buy the Enjoy Life white chocolate chips, which were 18 times the price. But it
Yeah.
is
And you
what
know
it
what? And
is.
people, this is another conversation for another time, but you can make your own chocolate chips. Who knew? Like if you want to spend a little time in your kitchen, that's a thing, and it's not as hard as people think. So if I were to say something last thought to our listeners today, it's don't be afraid to get in your kitchen. Like everything is able to be made from scratch, and you'd be amazed at how easy it is.
I'm gonna look into the making your own chocolate chips. I'll put that on the to-do list.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful to you, and you've been an inspiration to me on so many levels. So I just send you so much gratitude and love.
Well, right back at you. This has been a wonderful conversation, and thank you for inviting me on.
Isn't Sarah great? I'm so happy that I was able to share that conversation with you. And now let me get into the juicy bits from this episode. Number one, let's celebrate the digestive improvements that come from removing animal proteins from the diet. Less bloating, less bathroom emergencies. And that's great if you are an endurance runner like Sarah is. Number two, to go vegan and stay vegan, it's really important to have a why and then have more than one why. So for me, it started with environmental concerns like the destruction of rainforests and ocean dead zones. And that very quickly grew into concern for animals, extinction, habitats, and then the awareness of animal agriculture and how animals are raised, confined, and slaughtered. So having multiple whys will keep you in the movement. Number three, people are afraid of what they don't know or afraid they'll be lacking something by going vegan. And that's simply not the case. Number four, all of life is learning. If you're not evolving in some way, then what's the point? Number five, transformation happens in little steps. So be open to the journey taking you to the next right thing. It's like the idea of following breadcrumbs, which really is the story of my spiritual growth and vegan journey. I was never looking to go vegan. It's all been about following the breadcrumbs. Number six, there should not be food scarcity in our world. There just shouldn't be. With the amount of food that's grown, that's produced on planet Earth, everyone should be well fed. The problem is so much of that is used to feed animals that then end up on certain people's plates, but there's not enough to go around when it comes to the animals, despite how many are slaughtered. So if we just cut out the unfortunate middlemen, middle creatures, our beautiful animals, and fed grown food directly to humans, we would end the food scarcity problem. Number seven, consciousness is when you start understanding that your choices affect more than you. And when you open yourself up to the transfer of energy being real, that consciousness is just magical. Number eight, all animals are sentient beings, meaning they feel. So just because eating animals is the way it's always been done doesn't mean it's the right way. Number nine, here's a new idea. How about we rebel against big business and governments that are telling us to do things that keep us in the machine of feeling bad and needing medication? Whoa! Number 10, all of life is learning, and it's best done when in nature and outside and not on screens. Although I do love that you are listening to this podcast, more than likely from a little device in your pocket. So let's just expand Sarah's idea to include listening to podcasts, but not so much being on screens, scrolling, or gaming. Number 11, we are meant to be in community, even introverts. And I consider myself an introvert. But being together with people and knowing you're not alone on your journey is so important. And that's why here at The Flirty Vegan, I promote being in a community, doing this vegan life together. Number 12, don't be afraid to get in your kitchen. Everything can be made from scratch. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but just encouraging you to do more of it. And number 13, Sarah's favorite foods include tofu, fresh produce for juicing, and plain dark chocolate. And she mentioned the bar from Walmart, which, by the way, I have several stocked in my pantry, and they are fantastic for making vegan s'mores with graham crackers, which, as she noted, are very often accidentally vegan. And there are vegan marshmallows available everywhere. Even my local, very basic, humble grocery store has it. So just keep your eye out. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Sarah, someone who is like your next door neighbor, someone you'd see at Target, or someone you would meet jogging on a trail. I hope you found inspiration from all of the beautiful information and perspective that she shared. And I do hope you will check the show notes for ways to get in touch with her and also ways to get more involved with The Flirty Vegan. And I hope to see you right back here in 2 weeks for my phenomenal conversation with another rock star in the vegan world, Dr. Melanie Joy. And if you have time between now and that episode to check out some of her books, especially the monumental Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows. It is an amazing piece of work, and you will hear us talk about that and so much more. So I wish you a wonderful end of June, start of July, happy Independence Day. And as always, it is with a heart full of gratitude and a fridge full of veggies that I send you peace, love, and chickpeas. Mwah!